Hola Lumeno Mentielvo. I'm TJ and you're listening to Tolkien on Tap. I have a quick addendum for last week's episode. It is the dwarves that Beren takes an army of Ents to attack after the ruin of Doriath. Also, the Shibboleth of Feanor is in Peoples of Middle-earth. It is not in Morgoth's Ring. This is part 2 of Art and Nature in Middle-earth with Kelly and Alida. And just talking about like how Tom is in so in tune with nature. Him with the Eowyn, the lamb, which by the way was such an awesome, like it's not even a deep cut because it's like straight up in the Lord of the Rings book. Like I love that the lamb's name is Eowyn, and so to Eowyn, Wayne, I can't say it right. Ben Adar. For those who don't know, that's what the elves call Tom Bombadil. Eowyn Ben Adar, which I think is amazing. So
So good.
episode 6. Now that we've turned to Rings of Power talk,
So we go from like
I
such
love that
good
you're just like so
quotes.
into it right now. Yes, do
I
it, do
was
it.
all into Tom's in season 2. Um we go from such good quotes about like you don't hold power over, like each living thing holds power over themselves. Like you don't hold power, to just like a rehash of Gandalf's line. It it was
Inverted, no less.
Yeah, right. And so like this is what Rings of Power does. It's a great illustration for me of how I feel about Rings of Power, is that one minute you will be like so all in it and be like, yes, that is what we've been missing in Tolkien adaptations. That's what the Silmarillion is getting at. That's beautifully portrayed, well acted. And then the next scene, you'll be like, why did you do that? What?
Yeah,
What? Why?
yeah,
And it just flip flops like that. And I think there's more good than bad.
I
But
agree.
the fact that they can just one scene just kind of tear it all down, I'm like, no, why? Don't do
Yeah,
that.
like the inversion of the line is what got me upset. Um, I don't like fan service aside, because fan service can be done really, really, really well. When you call something back and you draw on someone's nostalgia and you don't detract from what's happening, or if you're gonna, or you don't detract from the original thing either. Like that line is so specific to Gandalf for such a specific reason. Like that's literally Gandalf telling Frodo, like, listen, man, things happen. Like you can't control it. And it's also not up to you to say that someone should die or someone should live. That is the point of, and he's saying it to Frodo at a point where Frodo says, I wish Gollum was dead. Like that is like that context is so important. And then to hear who would be Gandalf trying to help his friends, and then for Bombadil to be like, people die, who cares? Like
Yeah.
it's so weird. It's so weird to me.
It's so weird.
It made me think they were going a completely different direction with that, where it was like, oh, maybe this explains why Gandalf just like will randomly go off on different tangents for a while and like
I
abandon all
love
of the
that, Ray.
dwarves during the Hobbit. Like,
That is a really cool read,
I
actually.
love that.
Yeah. So this is one of my high horses about Rings of Power season 2. And I've said this to so many people, and I've actually learned from people, like there are people who have not even like either not read Lord of the Rings or not read it recently, like within the last like 10, 15, 20 years, um, to age myself. Um, and they're like, well, I just, it's a teaching moment. And I'm always like, that should have come from Nienna. That should have come from Nienna. Like I'm so on my high horse and I know I need to
Yeah.
calm down about it.
Yeah.
But it is really cool to like be given a different perspective, because what Alita's saying is a really cool way to look at it. And saying like, it's just a test, like
Yeah.
I understand, I don't like it, but it's a good point. It is a good point. And I want to bring that up because like there are a lot of haters out there, Rings of Power, and like I listen, if you don't like something, you don't like something. I'm gonna take a
But it's
drink.
also
Let's
just like, yeah, it's like, yes, there's moments that you might not like, but don't write it all off. Like there's moments that
right,
you might like. Like
right.
I think there are a few things in Rings of Power that even if I hated everything else, there's a few moments where I'm just like, that is so beautifully done. I'm so glad
Hmm.
I watched that. One of them is in season 1 when Arondir is running away with um, Bronwyn and their son, her son, and they are running away from the orcs in the dark forest, and then
You
they
can
get
say
into
their
the
son.
light.
Around here helps
Theo,
raise
I
them.
just kind of, yeah, that's true. I just kind
Mhm.
of forgot his name for a second, but
Oh, yeah, no
I wanted to say Thorin, and I was like, that's not his name. Just keep
No, that's
talking.
the dwarf.
I know. I was like, couldn't remember. I'm bad with names, especially with like Rings of Power stuff.
That's so good.
Um,
I have it all written down on my hand right now.
that's I felt so bad when I was like, because I attended San Diego Comic-Con and I didn't know the actor. I had to study some of the actors' names because I was very, very lucky in like in meeting some of them, but I was like, I don't know. I just know their characters and that I saw them. But anyways, I can actually think of their character names at the very least. So Theo, but they're running away through the dark forest, and then they come into the clearing, and then it's the orcs, which the orcs in Rings of Power are done perfectly. I thought that in season 1. I think that in season 2. I think that they're done the perfect. I think they're the best like adaptation of orcs that we've seen in
Wait, wait,
anything.
wait, wait. Do you like that they like literally burn in the sun like that
Yes,
quickly, that fast? Really?
I do. I do. I like that because like we haven't seen anything like that. Didn't really see orcs really being afraid of the sun and like what it actually did to them physically. I love that the sun actually affected them, and I think visually they're stunning. They do such a good job with that.
Oh, I
I
agree with that
do.
for sure.
I think that everything that was done in season 2 I actually really enjoyed. I wasn't really a Adar fan in season 1, but I loved everything in season 2. But yeah, I do like I think it's a little far-fetched. I don't think Tolkien had that in mind when he wrote that, but I think visually speaking it works for translating their fear of the sun and the effects of the sun on them on
Yeah.
screen.
That
um
wasn't something that I was like, oh, I hate this. I was just like, that's really interesting. And I've
yeah,
never heard anybody bring that up that specifically because like mentally in my mind, I was like, that's an interesting choice. I'm not sure how I feel, but okay. Oh,
yeah, no, I thought it was so good. And like
okay.
the fact, like in that scene when they're going to the clearing, and then like the orcs literally cannot go into the
Okay.
sun, and
So,
it's
yeah,
not
I loved
for
that.
this. So, and then Disa singing in the background, and it is done on a mythic level to me, and I adore that scene. I think every fan, whether or not you watch Rings of Power in its entirety, I think you should watch that scene because I think that it is so moving.
Yeah. I did like I did very much like that the orcs actually were afraid of the sunlight because, yeah, the Peter Jackson films don't necessarily, you don't feel that.
I don't really
Not
do
even
that. And it's
necessarily.
certainly not in the Hobbits. Like it doesn't even matter in the
No,
Hobbit films.
no, not one bit. I mean,
So
and I don't really want to get on a like disparaging Peter Jackson thing, but yeah, that I honestly like there's a lot to be desired of both, but honestly at this point I prefer Rings of Power. And I love the Lord of the Rings that PJ made. I don't really love The Hobbit. If you do, that's fine. That's not my bag. Um,
yep.
but yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
I
there's
never thought of that. I mean, like, yeah, the orcs visually being terrified of the sun. It is a really good way to represent for people who don't know
hmm
why, you know,
yeah,
because Aryan and all that.
exactly. They were in that moment, but they feel what Tolkien wrote, I feel like you don't know all of
Yeah,
the stories behind it, but you do feel like there is this great good presence, the sun and light against darkness, and you know that it actually affects them and that they there's light in this world that they cannot literally touch. So
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That
And
that's no. Go ahead, Alita.
like and I feel like it's such a pivotal plot point in like some of the books too,
yeah,
especially like the Battle of the Pelennor Fields and then like the emergence of the Uruk-hai, because it's this shocking new terrifying thing they can move in sunlight.
yeah.
Yeah, I just no, I never, and I lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry about that. Uh,
That's okay.
so I'm gonna debut this to you too. I got an Irish translation of The Hobbit recently.
Ooh.
A friend of mine, I sent to Warhammer from the War of the Rohirrim, and as a thank you, they sent me an Irish translation of The Hobbit, which is funny because Tolkien couldn't stand the Irish language, and I just found that out a couple days ago listening to the letters. So
I remember him
sorry,
talking about that and like insisting like
sorry,
because
Professor. It's gonna go right next to the Silmarillion.
yep.
Um, yeah, which is sad because I love the Irish language, but obviously didn't do anything for him. His bag was Finnish and Welsh.
Yeah. I'm sure he had his very philological reasons that just had to do with literal shapes and sounds and
The way he describes languages, how it affects him, is kind of the most beautiful thing I've ever heard.
yeah.
For those who do not know, he says that he the way he hears language is the way people hear music, and the way he sees language is the way people see colors. Like
Yeah.
that's how he described language affecting him, and it was kind of amazing because that's not how I am. Like I play music, right? Um, art is my thing. I love like musical arts is my thing. So when he equated language to that, I finally understood.
Yeah.
And knowing that knowing that that affected him like that, then yeah, I was like that's amazing that he was able to uh uh um what is the word? I'm so good at words. It's the way he described that just it was cool that he could like communicate that to the world. There's parts of the movies that live in my head that when I go back and read,
Mhm.
I'm like, oh yeah, I completely forgot. And then I'll be talking to someone who maybe has only seen the films or whatever, and they ask me a question, and they want the book knowledge, and then I'll be like starting to say the answer, and I'm like, wait a minute, hold on, I gotta double check. Let me grab my phone. I have to go to Tolkien Gateway real quick or whatever. Or if I'm like at home and I'm on the phone with someone, because this happens a lot. I have a friend at work who has Lord of the Rings questions, and I'm like, how long do you have? Because I'll just grab my stuff and I'll just like I will find every answer for you. Does that happen to either of
That's how I
you?
am too. Yeah,
Yes.
definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. And like especially like being in like the community, like I'm so nervous of giving the wrong answer just because like if I have like a gut answer, I'm like, I'm sure like 99% of the time it's right. But
Mm-hmm.
I second guess my, and this is why I'm so bad at trivia, because I second guess myself because I'm like, am I thinking of the movie? Am I not thinking of the right character? Am I making something up in my head? Because I'm just like, I just go off of like my gut, but I'm like, no, it's because like when I was 14, I like loved that fact. And it just, I've forgotten over the years of like how much I guess like the original like point of learning it. And it's just
Mm-hmm.
like in my brain. So the same thing will happen to me. I'm like, here's my answer. Like my partner will do that because he's read some of Lord of the Rings. Um, but it's getting more and more into the Lord of the Rings fandom. And he'll ask me questions and I'm like, here's my answer, but like let me look it up. Like let me give you the right answer.
Does he let you info dump?
Yes, he does.
Yes,
But I
that's the
Either
try,
best.
but I try to keep it like I try to keep it short because like he's the talker of between the two of us. He's definitely the talker. So
Okay.
I usually am just like I here's what I know. Here's what I love. And then like if you like it's based off of this, which is off of this. But like just focus on this is usually
So
what I
so
do.
wait, so are you saying you try to keep it short, but you end up tangenting a lot and you realize like 2 hours have gone by? Not 2 hours,
No, no,
but
never that long because I'm just not that much of a talker. But yes, I'll usually be like, well, I'll just stop myself. I'll be like, well, it really was like he was inspired by like the Anglo-Saxon poetry, which like maybe like he was like this is subset like Ubisant poetry, which talks about like death and decay and all that sort of stuff. But like really, if you just want to look at like where's the horse and the rider, if you look at that poem, it's interesting because of this, like you know what I mean, like it's just like
yeah.
well if you did like let me just not go into all of that, but like I need you to know that it is based off of that and it this does affect this. So I'll just like pinpoint it
Mhm.
like that, but I'll try to keep it short.
So you're bullet pointing kind of?
Yeah,
Okay, I don't know how to bullet point.
Yeah.
So, my hat is off to you for having the wherewithal to number one, understand how to bullet point,
I
because
try.
I don't think I'd even understand how to do that. And also to have the willpower to just bullet point it, whichever one it is. Um, uh, kudos to you. Is there anything specific either of you remember from the movie that you're sure, or remember of Lord of the Rings that you're sure is in the book, but is definitely not in the book? I know it's a weird question because I was thinking of this before I asked this, and I was like, I don't know if I have one
I
specifically. I
I
have more
really
than
think
I'm
that
like,
there is, but I don't know if I remember.
yeah.
You know, like they
Um,
come to me at random times where I'm like, oh yeah, no,
Mhm.
that's just movie or that's just book. I have the opposite a lot. I do think that I think we all can like invent seeing scenes that we haven't seen, like we
like
haven't
what?
actually witnessed.
Like
I
what?
don't know. I don't
That's
know
an
if I can think of
interesting.
one off the top of my head, but like I have questioned myself before of like, is this in the movie? Like it happened a lot when I was very much into Harry Potter,
Mhm.
which not anymore. But that happened a lot when I was a kid. I'm like, I saw it, but like not, no, it's not. And it has happened with Lord of the Rings as well. I'm trying to think if there's any good examples.
Yeah,
And I
I
feel like it. Ooh,
no, go ahead, leader.
I feel like it gets more complicated too because there's so many adaptations now, like
Mhm.
with the animated works and like
Mhm.
the BBC, like the BBC radio show really throws me off. Where that's
Oh,
where
Mhm.
it's like,
Tolkien hated that.
he did? That makes
Yeah,
me so sad. Like,
he was not the biggest fan of that
oh
whatsoever. I just heard that a couple days ago. Yeah.
no. Oh,
The
I
BBC
don't think
or the other
the radio
adaptation?
the radio adaptation that they did that came out like not long after the book was
Oh, okay.
yeah, after the books
There
were
is
released.
another adaptation that never actually was made. It was just a script that he read that he
ooh.
hated.
No, I'm talking I'm pretty sure it's the one with John Hurt. Um
Okay.
yeah, that one. This the script is that the one from God, I can't remember what year that was. It was gonna be animated? Is that one? Where he didn't like the script? Well, he liked the fact that it
Hmm.
was going to be animated, but he couldn't stand the script because the script was very action packed, right?
Very
Mm.
action packed. He really
And
did
they
not like Tom Bombadil in that.
yes, that's yeah.
They were like really trying to adapt him in a way that like again, I think he saw that like this kind of jovial, who cares, like
Mhm.
presence on screen like didn't really belong um in what in a Lord of the Rings adaptation, because there is more to it, even though Tom is kind of jovial and oh, the ring doesn't affect him, but it's so much deeper than that in the
Yeah.
books. But yeah, he had harsh words to say.
Yeah. Yes, he did. So who is Tom Bombadil? I'm just kidding. We're not doing that. We don't do that here. We don't do that
No.
here. We don't speculate on Tom Bombadil. Tolkien himself said that he just is. Because sometimes mysteries are much more fun. And I agree. Like I don't
Better
need
off
to
than Enigma.
yes, I don't need to know every single thing.
Yeah.
Um, although I would like to know more about Finrad. Finrad mentioned let's drink. So what other things in the legendarium do you that what other things draw you in? Or like do you seek out well Kelly, you studied it. So you pretty much know as much as you can know, right?
Mm-mm, no.
Mm-mm.
No, no, no. Um, I always get nervous that people think that I know every little piece of the legendarium, because of course I don't.
Yeah.
Many people don't. I studied Tolkien deeply in the sense that I studied, you know, you could read a work and then write on it, and then from those, like your research kind of branches out.
Hmm.
But your research branches out to other scholars, other pieces, in the whole kind of world that Tolkien himself was lived in and inspired by. Um, and so you can study Tolkien in so many different ways. So I don't read the Silmarillion, you know, every single year. I don't have all of those names memorized. I certainly don't have all of the places, like unless again I've like very recently read it and it's in my brain. But I also have a full-time job and like live life and do other things. So like and part of my job is reading other fantasy books as well.
Oh,
It's a
that's
big part of
cool.
my day job. Is the fantasy genre as it stands currently. And I go in and out of like being in Tolkien's world, even though I always have one foot in it. So there's definitely people like Pete and David and Lee who can just and Nubetta who drop names that I'm like, oh yeah, 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 yeah.
All the time.
All the time. Um, but I there's elements of Tolkien that I studied quite deeply and wrote about and loved and really really immersed myself in. And I forgot the original question. I feel like I'm just rambling now, but the answer
No, that's
is I
cool.
don't
That's
know
actually
everything.
that's the most fun answer is just rambly questions. You're talking about writing stuff on Tolkien. Did you ever get anything? Did you ever like submit stuff to like Tolkien Society?
I have been published, yes.
I would
Um,
love to read that stuff.
I it's a book on The Hobbit. It's called The Hobbit Critical Insights. And I was it's
I'm gonna
actually
write this down.
kind of my only paid writing gig that I've had, but I got paid to write about Tolkien, and I is very honored to. But it's a collection of essays on The Hobbit. And funnily enough, my essay is not on The Hobbit itself, but it's one of the introductory essays. And so it was about I the word count that I had, like the amount of space that I had to talk about Tolkien's influences in life, his I think it was his cultural, historical, and literary influences in like 10 pages. The best way I could describe that feeling is Inigo Montoya saying, "Let me tell you, no, it is too much. Let me sum up."
That's such a great pull. That's
Because
such a great pull.
it's all I could think about while writing that. Because I'm just like, okay, 3 pages on his literary influences, and that is kind of my I don't know specialty is I love thinking about it and writing about it, and
Yeah.
um, there's elements that people don't really even know, like his inspirations from children's stories, The Marvelous Land of Snurgs, Alice in Wonderland, like
Oh yeah.
things that people don't really pick up on or know. Of course, Princess and the Goblin is more well known because he literally talks about it, but
Right.
the literary world that he was writing when he was writing a children's story, The Hobbit, um, is fascinating to see like what he maybe might have been inspired by. And then
Mhm.
you have like these Norse myths and of course religious texts as well, which is not really my thing, but it's there's so much. He studied medieval literature, he studied Anglo-Saxon literature, and to try to kind of formulate all of that, but then also like his cultural influences to try to figure out war and how that might have influenced him. And while not also trying not to get into allegory too much, because you don't want to always do that as someone who studies a writer. You don't want to say, well, he lived through this and so this equals that. Like you don't want to do that, but you do want to explore the history behind and the cultural
Right.
influences that he was writing in. But that's all to say, I did, yeah, I wrote that essay, and was proud of what I did in the end because I was able to kind of sum up. But I've presented papers at MythCon very early on in my graduate career, and have been presented papers at some other conferences, and have been published in Mythlore, but not on Tolkien at all. Just it was like reviews on some fairy stories that I had read and been asked to review. So I have that as well. And I was published in a journal that I don't think is around anymore. It's called Silver Leaves. And that was a paper that I had written for school, actually, for Signum, and that I submitted, and it got published, which was really cool. And it was
Nice.
on the first draft of The Hobbit, and like the differences between the first draft and not the first draft, one of the earlier drafts that Tolkien was writing, when the company went to Rivendell, and how that compared to how it ended up in the published text, and kind of how Tolkien was working through his idea of fairies and elves, and how they ended up being a little bit more like ethereal, a little bit more what we now know as Tolkien's, elvish. But they didn't quite start that way. There's very, very subtle, small hints that you can kind of see, like, oh, I can see why he made that change to kind of create the elves that he himself didn't know he was creating. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I it's been a long time since all of that has been like published, and papers and all of that. But yeah, definitely very fun time of my life.
What was that? What was that thing that you said was published? It was called The Hobbit. What now?
Critical Insights,
I'm writing this
The
down. That's
Hobbit.
why.
Yeah. I can send you a picture of the photo. It's one of those books that's like academic, and so it's like a little pricey. Um,
Oh, that's fine.
but it's out there.
Nice. Yeah, I would love to read that, honestly. I'm at the point in my life where all I'm gonna do is consume Tolkien media.
I
And
love that.
anyone who writes about, draws about, paints about, writes music about, sings about. That's kind of all I'm doing right now. Like it's my entire personality. um, oops, whatever.
Oops, oops, all Tolkien.
Right. Oh no. Oh no. I like just like like leaned into my nerdery. Oh no. Alida,
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit more about the Akallabêth. Since we talked about Rings of Power, and I'm not gonna spoilery, but um what do you hope to see, being such a fan of Numenor and that story? What is your hope to have portrayed on screen?
Um,
And matter of fact, right now, anybody who hasn't read anything about Akallabêth or Numenor or any of that stuff from the Second Age, this is your spoiler warning. If you watch Rings of Power and you don't want to know and you want to be spoiled, starting now. Alida, please.
okay. Well, first, like the non-spoilery parts, I want them to take their time. Like, I feel like there are these big I'm not the biggest fan of how they've adapted it so far, where it's like the elves are taking our jobs,
Oh, it's the
and
worst.
showing like the factions between the faithful and the kingsmen. I want them to take it a little bit slower, but also like really have that build up and like backstory that's going to lead to things getting a little bit crazy, like the human sacrifices, for
Yeah.
instance, and like burning of the Nimloth. And I feel like we haven't had as much time in Numenor like through the lens of Numenorians as opposed to like um Galadriel and like Halbrand Sauron as visitors, and I really want them to spend that time getting grounded, and like I could see them having some action, but really like wanting that build up. I need the scene where Sauron is on the Temple of Morgoth defying the Valar in the lightning storm, and it's like this is this moment where you can turn back, and
Yes.
like the eagles of Manwë are coming in, and they're like smiting people on the hills with lightning, and everyone is like terrified, and then Sauron gets up on the Temple of Morgoth and is like, "Ah, ha, ha, I defy you," and they're like, "Oh my god, he's incredible. Let's do what he says," and it's just like full steam off the deep end after that. Like, I need that scene.
Oh my god, I'd love that so much. Uh just the Could you imagine Charlie Vickers on top of a temple in a storm as a giant wave is coming, just like lightning bolt after lightning bolt after lightning bolt, and he's just still just laughing. Oh my god, that would be amazing. So, do you see, since they've introduced Aodian, um Do you see her as maybe being like an architect for the Temple of Morgoth, or Morgoth if David's listening? Do you
I
see
think
her
they're
as
gonna,
like the
yeah. Like, I feel they're setting that up just so obviously to do that, and it's gonna be really interesting to see the dynamics of like somebody who's Elendil's like next of kin designs the Temple of Morgoth. And I'm even though she's original, I'm interested on seeing like how that plays out. And I like the fact that we have a lady villain, like who isn't just like Ungoliant or Shelob or something. It's a complex villain who's a woman, and seeing like I want to see like some moral grayness and conflict because I feel like we see a lot more of that in the earlier ages as opposed to the third age, and that's where people get the idea of like, oh, it's just absolute evil and black and white. And that's what I love about the Silmarillion is the elves do horrible things, like the Numenorians who are like held up in a pedestal by Gondor. They do horrible things, and it's like
Oh yeah.
everybody is capable of immense good and immense evil.
Yeah, I completely agree. Everyone in the Silmarillion, almost everyone in the Silmarillion is a terrible person, except for Finrod. Um, sorry, I'm just kidding. I always do that. I have to. I'll take a drink.
Love Finrod.
I love Finderato. I'm wearing my necklace and I'm like playing with my enamel pin as we speak, like a little fidget spinner.
Yo,
These are on Etsy, by the way. If you would like an enamel pin,
I
um,
have one of those. It's
you have one of these.
Luthien though.
Oh, you have
oh,
Lucian's? Lucian's
Yeah,
cool.
I
nice.
don't know where it is. I think it's downstairs.
I got it to make sure that I can be as annoying as possible at Westmoot. So, because I'm gonna make a cosplay of Finrod, that one where he's playing the
Oh,
harp, where he's wearing the blue, he's got the
oh
chainmail
my
under him.
God.
I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna be beautiful.
That's so
Um,
cool.
yeah.
I'm gonna be beautiful.
And then I also had the idea to. Did you see the Lee's video about Finrod and the Badger thing? Yeah. Oh,
I
so
just saw it today.
okay, good. So Alida, there's a text where it's I can't remember. I think it's in Peoples of Middle Earth. It's either in Peoples or Nature. I don't know. David and Lee always talk about those two.
Or like both. It might be in both.
It could be on both, yeah. But so it's one of the later writings. I was really inebriated last time Lee talked about this, and even going through and editing stuff, I still can't remember. But yeah, who would have guessed? but so basically, it was like it started off like partially disparaging towards Finrod by the Feanorians. They called him Badger, or they called him Felagund to mean Badger, because he went and hid in Nargothrond.
Mm.
And it started off like that, but like it wasn't like fully mean, but it like also partially was. And then he just adopted it, and it also happened to like coincide. No. That was him rewriting It came from the Dwarvish for Cave Hewer. So it was like him rewriting that. So basically, Finrod Felagund is a badger, and so my other idea for a cosplay at Westmoot is to wear the exact same costume, but have like furry gloves and slippers and a badger head. So wear the same costume twice, but the second you have like a badger head.
Oh my
Love it.
god. So
It's
UW
so niche.
Madison is like right down the road from us, and their mascot is the Badger. So there's like Badger
You
merchandise
can you
everywhere.
can you steal that for me? Steal the mascot.
Probably.
Steal
To
that
steal the
mascot
entire
costume.
mascot.
Yes.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
probably have like 30 of them, like in storage somewhere.
How much you need for theft?
Do you have a magic ring?
I could probably procure one.
Okay.
I mean, I could just I could just start quoting Big Lebowski. You want a ring? I'll get you a ring. Hell, I'll get you a ring by 3 o'clock with nail polish. Sorry. But yeah, no, these enamel pins are great, so I got it to be super annoying. Back to the Akallabêth. Yeah, that'd be amazing to see stuff like that. The saddest part though is gonna be Miriel. Like, they've done such a good
Do
job with her.
do you think there's a chance that they won't kill her? I'm, like,
Mm.
really wondering. Do you think
I'm
I
there's
afraid
don't
they'll
big
know
change
I
it
don't know
somehow.
how I would
That would
feel
devastate me.
about that because I mean, she'd have to straight up abdicate, right? Right?
Yeah. Or do you think she might sacrifice herself?
See, I'm fine with that. It's
Probably
gonna
do
be
that, yeah.
sad.
I think that might be
It's gonna
yeah,
be
I think that
sad.
she's not gonna just die in the waves. Like, I think
Or, like, trying to save herself at the end, it's
I th
gonna have some
yeah,
kinda extra.
because
Yeah.
they've written her character so well, and she's so beloved, and
Yeah.
I do love everything that they've done with her.
Yeah. I just can't see her surviving because that brings up weird lines
Changes
of
too much.
succession.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Got it.
it's I mean, I'm fine with changes, but like when it's a change that I have to go like, but that's lines of succession. And that's
Yeah.
like that's a
Yeah.
big thing to try to write yourself around, you know what I mean? It's like the people who really want Farazan to be Nazgul. I'm like, please don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
I want that man
No, he needs to
buried.
die.
I
Yeah,
want
he
that
needs to
Mhm.
man
actually die
buried
and be
under
mortal.
yes,
Yep.
yes.
Yeah.
If anyone's gonna be a Nazgul, it's gotta be Kemen, and he's gotta be the Nazgul who gets the torch thrown in his face in The Lord of the Rings by Aragorn. That is my headcanon. Either that or he needs to get like ripped in half by an Ent.
Those are
Visibly
like
on screen. Visibly
yeah.
on screen. Like I don't want to just like hear him like ah in the background and hear some crunching. I want to watch that man rip in half because Winter Bloom is pissed. And they did kind of set that
Winter
up.
Bloom must do it.
They
Oh my
set
god, if
it
Winter
up.
they did set it up because he talked
Yeah.
about
Yeah,
like needing
they
timber,
did.
which is
Yeah.
very Eldarian and horrendous, which I thought was awesome that they did that
Yes.
call out. But
Yes.
yeah, there's so many things I want in that show. Um, but yeah,
I
that'll be
actually have like a mini webcomic on Threads like before I shut it down. I did a poll of like, do you want dumb ways to die in Middle Earth with Kemen? And the one was him getting squished by an ant.
wait. You actually like made these?
Yeah,
Is it still around? I didn't know. I didn't see it.
I'll have to I still have it on I think I still have it on my art Instagram, but I'll send it to you.
Yes, please do. Please
Yeah.
do. Do you have an art Instagram too? Do I not follow you?
Yeah. Yeah, that one's
I need
under
to
the Reddit handle, the Sticky Bee Bay one.
okay. I need to
Yeah,
follow that one too for sure. Because you make great art. I really like your art. I mean,
thank
obviously,
you.
I'm using your art for my stuff. So yeah, yeah. Um, is there anything else either of you would like to talk about? Anything touching your heart, or anyone you want to say, fuck you to, like maybe Syndiculo or Singolo. Syndiculo is David's word.
There's so many people
That's a
in this
drink,
in
ladies.
Cerulean to say
That's a drink,
F
ladies.
you
By the way,
to.
we said
Yeah,
fuck
you
Syndiculo.
did say, yeah.
And anybody listening, them's the rules. I didn't make this up. I totally made this up. Actually, I think Lee and David made it up. I'm not gonna take
I
credit
was
for
gonna
that.
say,
That's not on me. Don't put that evil on me. But I'm sorry, Kelly, I spoke over you. What were you saying?
oh, no, I
There's
probably
so
was
many
trying to
people
think of
in
something. Oh,
there's
there's
so
so
many
many people that say F you to in Cerulean.
well, now I'm interested. Who else would you like to say that to? We'll
I
take a
mean,
I will
Feanor.
personally take a drink for all of them.
Are both of you, are you team Feanor?
Fuck Feanor.
Or is always
I'm
bad guy?
I'm not a
Or are
fu-
you really interested
I'm not a
in
fuck
like
Feanor person, and I'm not a stan.
Ooh.
mhm,
Knowing listening to the way people like Lee talk about him, where like she looks at him in such a way that she go. I mean, like, dude, literally. Well, I'm getting slurry, ladies. Um, he he's born and his mother dies, depending on the text, because like the Shibboleth
yeah,
says that like she lived a little bit, but in the published Silmarillion, we'll go with that. So Feanor is born. Miriel dies. Or wait, did I say the right name? See, now I've been drinking. Hold on. Miriel Therinde? Yes. No.
yeah,
Now
I
I'm
think so.
questioning myself. Hold on. Let me get the book. Let me get the book. Oops.
Muriel. I think Muriel.
Miriel Thirende. Yeah, I think so. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll get some angry emails later. Not emails.
Uh-oh.
No.
Muriel. Yeah.
It is Miriel. Okay. I don't know why I second guess myself. Anyways, so
That's how I am too. So actually, yeah.
Oh yeah.
okay, cool. So Feanor's born, and then Miriel dies instantly in the published Silmarillion, and then refuses to come back to life or be re-embodied. Straight refuses. And then his father Finwë is so sad that he is like, you know what, I'm gonna go get married again. And then obviously there's like different texts where it talks about like the Valar actually have to like think about this and like talk to Eru Iluvatar about it, blah blah
It's
blah.
a big deal.
Yeah, it's a huge deal. That I think that's also in Shibboleth. I can't remember if it's talked about anywhere else, but it's definitely in Shibboleth. So like that's Feanor's childhood. Like that's messed up to have to deal with. And not to mention Finwë like heaped so much praise on him all the way until Finwë's dead. Like Feanor can do
Yeah.
no wrong. Finwë is always showering him with praises. So I'd neither hate nor love Feanor. He is such an interesting character, especially thinking about it that way, that I cannot hate him. But I also
You
do
love
not.
to hate him though.
I don't love to hate him.
You
You know who I love to hate is Elwë Singulo.
No.
Sorry. No, I don't hate Feanor. Truthfully, I don't actually have like I can't stand this. Well, I have one. Ale.
Yeah.
Ale's the only one.
Ale's a straight up.
Yeah.
So ick.
Yeah, Ael's the only character that I'm just like, I could do without this character.
That is where I'm like Tolkien, like more. I feel like as a woman reading Tolkien, there are some things that like you do wish for and you do hope, and like the idea of a strong women character, like you do want that, but there's different strengths and different. And I think Tolkien's good at that. It's not always about carrying a weapon or being like traditionally masculine. Like I don't think that equates to strong female character. So it's a complex issue. But that story, to me, I feel like he truly understands something that women go through, because the idea of that gross character and how controlling he was over a woman and her need to like leave that situation with her son is just, I feel like, so good. And so kind of, I think, I don't know if he gets credit for that as much as he does as a male writing a female character and her situation of needing to leave.
I don't think so either, because most people, when you bring up Tolkien and women, they're always like, he didn't understand women. He wrote like what, 2 or 3 women. Like that's how most people view because like they've read what, The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit.
The Hobbit.
And like there's how many women are in The Hobbit? I can't remember offhand.
Like none.
Pretty sure it's 0. Yeah.
Like Bilbo's mom is mentioned.
Right,
the fairy wife.
mentioned. Right.
Like that's
and there's like a handful of women, and like only like what, 2 like larger character women in The Lord of the Rings. I mean, of course you have like Lobelia, Sackville Baggins, and you've got like Goldberry, like, but they don't really do anything. But yeah, so people who say, and like obviously like I don't have like a frame of reference necessarily, but except for like, you know, people like you, Kelly, and you, Alida, and some of my other friends within the Tolkien community who I've talked to about this. But yeah, Tolkien's got some ladies. I mean, you, Kelly, you bring up a really good point about different strengths, and like it's not always about wielding a weapon. Like that's Eowyn's thing, right? But Luthien,
it's not Melian's. Luthien. Luthien sings.
Luthien like literally sings Tol in Galroth at that point, clean to be Tol Sidian. Like Luthien has, this is the weirdest sentence I'm gonna say. Luthien has a dog fall in love with her and like go fight werewolves for her. And like literally fights Wolf Sauron and like almost rips his throat out. And then And then she literally has the badassery to walk up and be like, "Hey, yield this, or I'm gonna have this dog kill you." And he goes, "No, no, 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 no." And then she's like, "Well, you're gonna yield?" And he's like, "I yield, I yield, I yield." And then dude like turns into a bat and like flies bleeding from his throat to Taur Nufuin. Like that's one of the funniest things, by the way.
I also love that she uses her feminine wiles to
Yeah,
like dance for him and like lull him into sleep. And I'm like, that is so fucking badass. Like
yeah,
I love that Luthien saves herself. I love that she literally takes the dog that was meant to guard her and like
yeah,
he's team Luthien.
yeah.
And then she saves herself, saves the dog away from these asshole characters.
The seas,
Um
yeah,
the two C's,
yeah.
and then goes and saves Beren too, and it's just
Oh
so
yeah,
good. And
Baron
it's
is
not,
such a damsel in distress.
oh my gosh, they just sing to each other. Oh,
Yeah,
um, but like, yeah, it's not the same type of shield
No.
maiden that we see in Eowyn. It's a different type of strength for sure.
yeah, and I mean, and Galadriel too, because Galadriel's a little bit of both. Because like Tolkien writes about
Mhm.
her as it's later writings, but writes about her as like like kind of an Amazonian. Her mother name is Nurwen, which is man maiden. Like she's tall as hell. But also she goes and uses, I don't remember, I don't think she sings Dol Guldur down, but it does say she raises it to the ground. Um, and I, you know what, she's related to Luthien like tangentially, so right? Hold on. Now I have to do some math in my head. Not math, genealogy in my head. You know what? Backwards, I think she's tangentially related to Luthien, not like from
Mhm.
I've had some drinks. So she's backwards tangentially. What a weird sentence. I've been saying some weird sentences on this back part of this podcast. But anyways, so yeah, she's like, you know, the Amazonian, the really tall, athletic too, not just tall, she's tall and
Yeah.
athletic. Um, and then she goes and raises Dol Guldur. And like it doesn't say that she like uses like any sort of like physical strength to do it, but she like cleanses it, which is amazing. Um, yeah, I that's a really good point, Kelly. I'm really glad you brought that up actually.
Like
Thank you.
Kelly's giving thumbs up.
Thanks.
thinking about like Awen even too, like for the longest time I had beef with her just like being, "Oh, I'm just going to be a wife and like
Yeah.
give up my like station as a shield maiden." Except like I think at some point I started seeing it in a different way and it's like she's not giving up this aspect, it's realizing like she held on to this really toxic idea that you can, because she was like stuck in a role that she hated and that was like basically her outlet for it. She didn't want to rule, she didn't want to like be in this really feminine role and was just like willing to throw her life away for glory, and her way to heal was to be like, no, I can experience love and I can experience wholeness and I don't have to just like seek out feats of grandeur. But she's also done like one of the most badass things and killed the Witch King, and it's like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, blah, like you're literally just growing as a human.
Yeah. Well,
Hmm.
and not only that, um, she's insanely depressed
Hmm.
for I just gave a my computer does that.
Give yourself a
Like I'm
thumbs
like
up.
counting with my thumb as one, and my computer goes, "Oh, you mean thumbs up?" No, I do not. So we'll do it the American way instead of the German way. Um, she God, the computer confused me, and now I can't remember where I was. Oh, she's insanely depressed. Like she literally wants to die. Like that is her
Yeah.
character arc in the first part of her story. She wants to die. That's why she like disguises as
Yeah.
Durnhelm and goes to Pelennor. But also the other thing that I think is really cool about her decision is she becomes healer, right? And in Tolkien, like healing is not a feminine or masculine thing. It is something that people just do, like because Aragorn and Elrond are very good healers, and then you also have like Yoreth, and then Eowyn becomes one, and there's tons of others, but It's not. It's neither masculine nor feminine, and that's why I like Eowyn's decision. Is because not only did she choose like one of the best men in the world in Farmer, um, and also their scene together is gorgeous. It's beautiful. It's a really fast turn, which is interesting, but that's a completely different conversation. Um, she also chooses something that is like insanely helpful to everyone. Like that healing thing is a very selfless thing. She went from being selfish to selfless, from I want to die because I want valor and I'm sad, and I want to win valor, because I'm sad, to, you know what? I want to help people because I was helped. And I think that's a really, really beautiful story arc. So yeah,
Absolutely.
I completely understand. And you know what? The Peter Jackson movie did her dirty. 100% did her dirty, because like she's not just girl power for the sake of girl power. Like she has a full ass character,
Mhm.
and they do use some of the lines from the book, um, but it feels like half-assed, to be completely honest. Because Book Eowyn is a whole jam. Like she's
Mhm.
amazing.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's like you get the clip notes of
Yeah,
Eowyn, really,
yeah,
barely. Like I think it's even not even it's the extended edition that you get that like
A little bit
kind of
more.
a little, and it's still like that's nothing compared
yeah,
to, I mean, even the chapter, the House of Healing, like when you reread that chapter, like this, it does happen, like you said, pretty quick.
hmm,
Um, pretty quick turn. Like, but although I'm glad he included it and wrote it, and it's really interesting when you do look at Tolkien's experience with war, and his healing from it. Because of course he got pulled out of war because of trench fever and had to heal physically and mentally, of course, like everyone who experiences that. Um, but healing was so important to him, and like healing through words and like I mentioned, like the act of like recovery. He thought a lot about it. And so the Houses of Healing chapters so important, and I think many people don't think about that. They, it's not included in the Peter Jackson films too much, so they don't, it often doesn't get the recognition that it deserves. But it's a vastly important chapter, when you
yeah,
look at Lord of the Rings as a whole.
yeah, yeah. I agree, and I really love the way Aragorn heals. First of all, going and healing Mary, and then going
Mm-hmm.
and healing Eowyn, and the way that the Athels is described as being
Mm-hmm.
different, like smelling different for each or to
Mm-hmm.
each person. And like Eowyn's is almost like scentless, but it feels like a breeze from the west, like almost like the Valar are trying to like breathe new life into her.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's what it actually means or not, but like I heard that as an interpretation. I was like, holy shit, that's a really cool
Yeah.
interpretation. Because like I read books and I'm like, this is the story, and then I listen to other people's interpretations and I'm like, oh shit, that's really good.
Well, she's also described multiple times, as a flower that's been frozen.
Yeah.
So she has described that when we first meet her, I believe, and then it's brought, that sort of analogy is brought back, in the Houses of Healing, and she quite literally thaws out, um, and so she goes from this cold, depressed, like you said, kind of frozen in time, frozen in one way of thinking, um, to, again, going back to light would thaw her, light and warmth, and the light and warmth from Farmir, um, and the Houses of Healing, is what is literally she's able to come back to life. So like that the idea of like the wind and like nature kind of like breaking that ice kind of thing, it's all in line with that kind of flower analogy as well.
See, and now I will think of it that way when I read it. Thank
Yeah.
you so much. I'm literally over here just doing podcasts to steal people's ideas. I'm just kidding.
But that's the whole point of podcast, right? Is like you have these like maybe like these seeds of thought, but like when you are able to talk to someone about them, like they really become the fruit of conversation, and like you have
That's a good
ideas that
point.
you didn't really write down yourself or really give yourself the time to think about. But in talking with people, we all learn something, and that's the coolest thing.
That's a great point. Thank you.
Seeds of inspiration. Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly.
Like, I love how you describe that too, and I never really thought of it as like she is frozen in every way, because she keeps
Mhm.
describing like the thing I fear most is a cage and to just like stay
Mhm.
here and rot, and she's like already in that position, and I feel like maybe that's driving like that depression and feeling like there is only one way out and it's glory through death.
Yeah. Well, we can end it here. Thank you both for being here. I really appreciate it. Where can people find you, Alida, if they want to
Right.
continue the conversation?
Yeah, I have no idea what's gonna happen in the social media verse right now, so that's difficult. But right now, you can find me on Instagram, for Tolkien stuff. It's at Sticky Bay, and I'm also on, was it Blue Sky? I think as just my real name, Alida Mao, and I sometimes post Tolkien content there.
All right. Kelly, where can people find you if they
Uh,
want to talk to you, continue the conversation?
I am on Instagram, the middle page. I'm also on Blue Sky as well, the middle page, I believe. But the username is like long. I don't know. I am also navigating new social media things, so we'll see what comes up. But yeah, basically, if you Kelly, the middle page, I'm sure you'll be able to find me.
Well, again, thank you both so much for being here. It's been a great conversation. I've had a lot of fun. We learned how to say cheers in, I believe it's Quenya. Uh, David and Lee looked it up. So, Elmian.
Elmian.
Oh man.
Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Tolkien on Tap. Thank you for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe and follow me on any of my social medias. I'm on Threads, Instagram, Blue Sky, and TikTok at @the_Neej. Namarie.